Good evening, everyone. I'm Shakima Chapman. I'm tonight's moderator for our Wellness on Wednesday session. We're going to take a brief pause as we begin to get our live streams going. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be an insightful evening where you'll learn about all the things that you need to do to journey into your retirement. I'm super excited for our guest this evening. But before we get started, as I said, just give us a quick moment as we go out to our other social media platforms and we'll get started. Suzanne, I know you're in the background, but I do believe you're going to need to give Shatika share rights so that she
She should
can.
automatically have it.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I was trying to do is set it up so that it's gallery. I mean, not gallery. She should.
Okay, so welcome everyone to this evening's Insightful Wellness on Wednesday. I'm Shakima Chapman. I'm the vice chair of the Wellness on Wednesday committee with Royal Missionary Baptist Church, and I welcome you to this evening's um, presentation of our with our special guest this evening. The topic tonight is Journey to Your Incredible Financial Success and Retirement Lifestyle. So before we get started, I do want to do a couple of housekeeping things just so you know. So we are here in our Zoom platform, but we are also broadcasting on Facebook as well as YouTube. So those of you that are in our Zoom platform, if you have questions, you'll notice that we have a Q&A box down at the bottom of the screen. This is where you will post your questions and they will be, I will read them out to our presenter at the appropriate times. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, we also have someone monitoring those platforms. So feel free to put your questions in the comments and they will be addressed as well. So now that we have that little bit of housekeeping started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to our speaker for this evening. But before we do that, I am going to do as we normally do. I don't see any of our ministers on, but I am going to open up in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to enhance ourselves even more as we prepare for retirement, God. Lord, you said in your word that we should study to show ourselves approved, Lord God. So as we take this time to study and learn more and plan for our futures, I ask that you protect this time and space so that our hearts and minds will be open and open to receive the information that is going to be presented to us. Lord, we ask that you cover our speaker, Lord God, and just fill her, and so that she may deliver this message in a way that you have chosen and see fit. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So our speaker for this evening is Ms. Shatika Husser. Shatika is a distinguished Army officer, compact veteran who brings over 26 years of investment experience to her role as a sought-after retirement consultant and wealth strategist at Shatika Husser Financial Solutions. With expertise in crafting strategic plans for financial security and never-ending tax-free retirement income, Shatika empowers professionals and business owners nationwide. As a dynamic speaker, she shares invaluable insights to equip audiences with retirement positioning success strategies for peace of mind. Shatika emphasizes the importance of diversifying accounts, modeling in her financial portfolio which she has planned stocks, Forex and crypto trades, real estate, and insurance. Holding an MBA, a CPC, and a CPLHI from distinguished institutions, Shatika complements her BS in business management from South Carolina State University. Beyond her professional pursuits, Shatika is deeply committed to community service and philanthropy, evident through her hosting of the Winning and Wealth Show on 2 Baltimore radio stations. Please join me all in welcoming Ms. Shatika Husser.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Can you hear me? And can you see my slides?
We cannot see your slides. If you want to try to share your screen.
Okay. So I'm in share mode. I'll do it once more.
And it should be a little green button at the bottom.
Right. Let me know once you can start seeing it because I was there, then it muted me. So I went a different route to try to share it. If you can unmute me, I'll put it in a different mode.
You're unmuted. We actually hear you. Are you able to, at the bottom of the screen, do the share screen?
Yes, ma'am. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you see the slides?
No, we cannot.
Okay. I am sharing the
And
slides.
Suzanne in the background, can you
I don't know
try
if you
giving
guys
her
can see my.
co-host rights? That may be the hangout.
Yeah, I have the chat here saying to enable my microphone because I can see it, but for some reason it's not allowing me to be vocal when I'm in share mode. I'm a log out and log right back in. I apologize. I'm not sure what's going
Yeah,
on.
because we can hear you. That's the thing. You're not muted. We can hear you.
So when I'm in share mode, you can't see my slides, but I can see them. So let me find out what's going on with that. Yeah, so
Are you able to see the green button on the bottom that says share screen?
right. Yeah,
And what is it allowing you to share your entire screen?
mhm.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me know once you can see it. I'm gonna just try a couple different ways here.
Okay.
I'm sorry for this. I'm
And
not
thank
sure
you
what
guys
happened.
for your patience. We'll hopefully get this resolved in a moment. And if possible, I know I have the option to share. If you want to shoot them over to me, I can do that as well.
Okay. I'm gonna log off and log back in 1 second.
If you can send them to me, that might be faster. Because I have share rights. It's giving me share rights with no challenges. Let me know when you're able to send them over. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. I promise you it's going to be well worth the wait. And while we're waiting, just to kind of see where we are, if you can put a 1 in the chat box, not the Q&A box, if you are within 10 years of retirement age. Just want to kind of see where we are. So if you are thinking you're going to retire in the next 10 years, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. Okay, looks like we got the slides up. Perfect. Now, Shatika, if you just unmute yourself. And still, guys, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat if you are retiring, let's say in the next 10 years. And then if you will have more than 10 years, I want you to put a 2 in the chat. And Shatika, if you are talking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Just, are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you guys for your patience. I do apologize for that. And thank you for getting that started, Shakeem, because I did want to get a pulse of the room and see who was actually here. Wanted to see the same thing around, how many Gen Zs do we have? If they can put a 1, how many, millennials do we have? Can you put a 2? And then Gen X is a 3, and then baby boomers are 4. So I can really understand who's inside the room. I
So it
know what I
appears
anticipate.
that they don't, so it appears they don't have access to the chat. So I've just been informed.
Got it. All right. All right. Well, we'll just keep going. And certainly when they ask questions, feel free to interrupt. The goal is to try to get through as much as possible, especially since we lost a couple of minutes in the beginning. So I'm gonna just move right through it. So I'm not going to talk about my story. I wasn't planning to anyway. I wanted to orient you to shatika.com where you can actually see more about what it is that I do and those types of things. So I wanted to ask these basic questions. So what does retirement mean to you? And when do you plan to retire? And how long will your retirement last? The average person don't have these basic questions answered, right? So tonight, I just want to bring some clarity to that. So definitely want you to have pen and pad and all those types of things to try to take some notes. My main goal when I work with anyone is to make sure that they can identify their gap, right? So what is your annual income needed in retirement? What's your annual income from Social Security pension, if you have that come in? And then what additional income will you need? That is the number one thing I do to help people, right? But today, this evening, I should say, we're going to be talking about qualified versus non-qualified plans. All right. So if I was to ask you, do you have enough money? The average person tells me that they don't have enough money. If you retired today, would you be able to maintain your current lifestyle? One of the main things that we tell people is to try to live below your means and use that extra money to try to put away and let your money work harder for you than you working for your money. We already know that, but a lot of times we don't do that because we don't live for today. But what if you can, instead of buying your liabilities, allow your assets to generate enough interest to be able to purchase your liabilities instead of you trading time for money to pay for your liabilities? In other words, why would you pay for liabilities out of your earned income when your liabilities can be paid with your money babies? So anything that you put money into, investments that produce money for you, we call that money babies or compounding money, right? That's the money that you buy liabilities for with. And the average person is not doing that. And so they don't have enough money saved. They don't have any extra. They're living check to check, those types of things. So retirement wellness is really what we want to talk about. But on our journey to retirement wellness, we really want to make sure we understand the steps to financial freedom, because the number one reason why people don't retire is because they don't have any financial freedom. They don't have the independence. They have debt, right? So the first thing we had to do is figure out, how will we increase our cash flow for what we're already doing now? How could we produce the money babies that we talked about, right? Very basic, right? because most people, they just want to spend, and their relationship with money is not that great. And then so they can't manage their expenses. Emergency fund is not there because they don't have enough cash flow for that. So instead of saving 3 to 6 months of income, I would venture to say save a year, especially with everything we heard with the pandemic, and so we understand that things can happen, especially if you're trying to become a business owner. If you're already a business owner, we already know the ebbs and flow of business. So why not have at least a year of income? So it's going to put you in front of those unexpected expenses. Now, for debt management, we want to make sure that we're not just consolidating the debt, but we're actually eliminating the debt. Very important. And I think that most people put the Band-Aid on that, and so they never get out of debt. But there's some ways to actually build your wealth, become financially free, and pay your debt off at the same time. It can be twofold. You don't have to do them, simultaneously. You can do them at the same time, basically. All right. So proper protection. This is the other way that most people, they end up having a hole in their pocketbooks, if you will, or their wallets. They don't protect themselves against the loss of income or their family assets. And so there's quite a few ways that you can do that. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Building your wealth. How do you do that? How do you outpace inflation? How do you reduce taxes? I like to tell people that their retirement plan should be one that has the HIT list, HIT, healthcare, inflation, and taxes. So you want to protect against all those types of things. Preservation of your wealth. You want to reduce your taxation so that you can keep more money, because if we can get you to keep more money, that's money that you can be building towards your retirement plan and living in your retirement years faster, moving towards retirement faster. So the question was, which protection would you choose? We just named 6 of them, right? But in all 6 of those protections, the common denominator is going to be some type of permanent cash value policy type. There is no other financial asset class that will give you all 6 steps to financial freedom. The only financial vehicle that can put you in all 6 steps is going to be a retirement plan that consists of one with a permanent cash value, because of how it shields you from taxation. It shields you from market volatility. It shields you from, lawsuits. It shields you from all those things, right? And then you can still grow your money tax-free, and you can use your money twice. While you're taking out loans, you can still have your mony growing inside of your permanent cash value policy at the same time. So let's talk about each one of these.
I wanna give you a pause just a second, because I want to make sure everyone is following allow with us. So are you going to explain each particular instrument that they could use? Okay, perfect.
I'm trying to get to that. So these are just like the 6 ways that you protect your money. Just reiterating that fact. So against stock market, income tax, medical costs, so healthcare. If you have long-term care needs, income protection, of course, making sure you have that income that never stops, just like Social Security, legacy protection, and then money protection, right? So the good news is you don't have to choose of these 6. You can have all at the same time in that one product, right? So the first area of focus is going to be on the stock market protection. Warren Buffett often tells us rule number 1 and rule number 2 when they ask him, well, what's rule number 2? Is to never lose money, right? And so the wealthy know how to do this very well. They're going to protect themselves from taxation, okay? And they're going to protect themselves as much as possible from market volatility. And so we want to make sure that we're playing safe with rule number 1 and rule number 2. And so if I was to tell you, most people want high returns, they want aggressive growth. So they put their money in things like stocks and mutual funds, but that's high risk. Other people like things like bank accounts, right? And, other types of low risk accounts, but unfortunately it's low return. And so it's low risk, but it's low return. But what if there's a way that you can have the best of both worlds? You can have high return and no risk, or low risk, right? So let's look at what happened, historical perspective. We always say that, let me say this real quick, because I didn't put this out first because of everything that's happening. I have to put this disclaimer that I don't know your financial situation, and that I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm giving you facts, because I don't know your situation. This is not a consultation, right? And so past results don't equal future results, those types of things. We got to put those disclaimers out there. But based on historical perspective, you saw where there was a couple periods where 8 years and 5 years people lost their money, right? And we just had another big dip in 2020, right? So the question is, will you have time within your lifetime for your money to rebound, or will you have time before you retire for your money to for the market to give you your money back so that you can still retire on the same timeline? So some people have high risk, some have low risk. You got to understand what your risk tolerance is, and you got to understand that whatever you decide to invest, it shouldn't be money that you cannot afford to lose when it comes to risky investments, right? So again, looking at this, the red line is going to be like those stocks, mutual funds, every type of employer plan. So we just talked about briefly, we're going to talk about qualified and non-qualified plans. A qualified plan is a plan that's qualifying you to have to pay taxes, okay? So we're going to show you what those are. Those are your 401ks, your 403bs, 457, TSP, IRA, all of those types of plans, SEP IRA, those are qualified plans, right? They're governed by the government, and you're going to be controlled. You have limitations on how much money you can put in them. A non-qualified plan is primarily used by a business owner. It's going to be one where you're in control. You have liquidity, those types of things. So when we see those red lines, as shown here, okay, those dips where they lost 71,000, they lost another 73,000. That's going to be your qualified accounts with those risks. That purple line is more of an index strategy showing you there is no loss. It can only lock in place if there's a loss in the market. It doesn't matter if it's negative 1,000. You cannot lose based on market volatility in an index fund that we're talking about this evening. So it goes back to rule number 1 and rule number 2 that Warren Buffett says, and that is that the goal is to stay out of the red. We don't want to lose a penny. All right. So let's jump right into what's going to happen with these taxes. Do we feel like taxes are going to go up in the future with our money? Well, Congress is saying it's going to double by 2033. So that's right. Get it straight. We are paying taxes on everything, on your wages, your sales taxes. When you pass away, it's taxes everywhere. You got to understand how to play the game with the taxes. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. I'm going to just skip through all this, but basically this is just telling you all about taxes, Social Security, how it's broken down, and where your taxation is going. This is the meat of the matter right here. And this is what people, it took me a long time to learn this after making the amount of money that I made and paid 6 figures in taxes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So trading time for money. This right here is based on Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So he says that most people, 95% of people are on the wrong side of money. They need to move to the right side of money, right? Because the left side is going to be the wrong side. In other words, you work for yourself or you work for someone else. No matter what, you got to get up and work. You got to put in active participation. You got to trade time for money. Where the wealthy come into play is that they are business owners, okay? They employ people to do the work for them. They don't trade time for money. Or they're an investor, rather that's real estate or whatever, but they are an investor. So the 5 percentile of people, business owners and investors, are on the right side of money, and the tax code is written for them. The tax code is not written for the W-2 employee, right? It's not written for the 1099. It's written for the business owner and investor. Because when we talk about things like the index product that's going to help you is that IRS code 7702. All right, we'll talk about that in a second. But IRS code 7702 allows you to be able to put money in different types of permanent cash value policies, take the loan out, never have to pay taxes as long as you take out as a loan, as long as you don't do withdrawals, right? The U.S. debt clocks, it's been over 33 trillion a long time ago. So we know we're in debt. We know our money is going to go to taxes. And the reason why is because more people are actually not paying into the system. Less people are paying into the system. And because of that, somebody got to pay for the taxes. Where are they going to come from, right? So, but we know taxes are going to go up in the future. But here's the deal. Would you rather pay taxes now? Would you rather pay taxes later? Or would you rather pay taxes never, right? And so I think that most people are on the 95 percentile. They're fine with like lowering their tax bracket today so that they don't have to pay as much tax today. But what about tomorrow, right? Or when they're in retirement? What's going to happen when you have this larger bill because taxes are now higher than they've ever been? Taxes used to be, well, I should say right now is like 40%. It used to be as high as 94 and 91%. And so the goal is to really see how can you move from having to pay taxes on the seed and be able to, I should say, pay taxes on the seed versus paying taxes on the harvest. And that's the biggest question that a lot of people don't understand how to get around or do. And that's kind of what we're talking about right now. So the seed is going to be less, of course. And so that's the reason why we want to make sure we get in front of that. So let's keep moving on. So I don't know. Okay, very good. All right, so these are all your qualified accounts. Your SEP IRA, your 401k, TSP if you're in the government. What are they? Excuse me, I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay, the SEP IRA is actually going to be for a business owner. The 401k is for your average employee working in mainstream industries. Not sure what's going on with this. Why is it moving? TSP is the government. IRA is going to be all the different ones, right? And then the 457, 403B, and then, okay, the 414. So these are like nonprofits, basically. So those are all your different codes for that. Now, what happened? I want to talk about the tale of two brothers because I think that to understand what's going on with these two brothers, the story begins with them both being the same age 35, married with two children, earning the same interest rate of 8% for the same period. Brother A believes in the old way, which is all those tax codes I just showed you. Those were all tax codes, right? All right. Brother B believes in a new way. He's saving for his retirement. He went and did his research like you're doing this evening or whenever you decided to watch this. And he figured out that unlike Brother A, when he's in retirement, he's not going to have to pay taxes. He has long-term care attached inside of his account. And he's not going to have to worry about running out of money. The money's going to last him forever. So he ends up going with the new way because he believes in the new way. It's been around since the 90s. It's not the new, but it's new to a lot of people today. And so we just want to make sure we bring awareness to that. So after 30 years, Brother A ends up with $858,000, right, in his 401k because he had the employer match. And Brother B ends up with $709,000 because he decides that, you know, he's not going to do the employer match. So he's a little bit behind, but it's not about how much money you make. It's really about how much money you can keep, right? So Brother A ends up with, you know, after 30 years, he has no insurance. The average employer does not allow you to have life insurance when you leave. It's rented insurance while you're on the job. You don't have that when you leave. And then, you know, you end up having to pay taxes. Remember, we talked about paying taxes on the seed versus the harvest. And now you got taxes coming out of your money that you was able to accumulate. And all you have is all you have. There is no leverage with a 401k. I don't care how much money you have. There's no leverage. Once you use the money, it's gone. With the Index Universal Life, the new way, he's going to have an $864,000 IUL death benefit for his family. Okay. He's also going to have $709,000 in cash value. He has doubled his money, the money of the Brother A, even though he didn't have the employer match. Okay. So something happens to him. He has cancer, heart attack, stroke, dementia, all the time. He needs some type of long-term care. He can use his death benefit while he's living up to 100%, depending on the carrier. He can use all $864,000. He still has his cash value of $709,000 that he can tap into. All right. He doesn't pay any taxes on the money as long as he take out the money inside, you know, out of using a loan. That's IRS code 7702 that we talked about previously. If we understand the tax codes and how they work, we can do like the rich and don't have to pay taxes, basically. That's how they do it legally. The legal way is to take out the loan out of a policy instead of paying. Okay. Some people prefer to pay taxes. They don't care. But if you're one that want to keep the money and use the money somewhere else, your children, grandchildren, other investments, this is important to you. Brother A, in retirement, he ends up, and this is why I go so hard and why I do what I do, is because in 9 years, he's going to run out of money. Okay. And the reason why he's going to run out of money like most people do is because, like I said earlier, there's no leverage. All you have is all you have. Once you spend the money, it's gone, right? So the average person is going back to work in 9 to 11 years when they're in retirement, if they don't have the proper type of structure. So 97,000 annual income is what he has set up. He has $32,000 coming out in taxes Once he withdraw all of his money each year to live off of, he has to go back to work in 9 years. Brother B, on the other hand, if he lives to be 100 years old, because of how that policy is built, he will have left his family almost $3.4 million, and he would have lived off over $3 million. We do these type all day long. This is real numbers. These are not made up numbers, right? But you have to start at the younger age you are, the better you are. The older you are, the more money you have to bring to these types of plans, of course, just like anything else. It's just like Social Security. The way the IUL is structured, the more you put into it, the more income you're going to have once you turn on that income. What we've decided to do is help people supplement their Social Security, and you can go to ssa.gov to figure out where you are. Like what we talked about in the very beginning when we showed you how we come up with that equation. You got to figure out where you are with your ssa.gov. How much money are you going to be projected to have at what age? And then where do you need to be in terms of that age? So if you're making $100,000 today, you're going to need, on average, a minimum of $70,000 in retirement. 70% of what you make. And we already know that on average, you're only going to get 40% of that in Social Security. So if you're only getting 40% in Social Security and you need to be at 70%, where are you going to get the other 30%? That is why Brother B is going to be in a good position. Brother A is going to be short and having to go back to work because he doesn't have anything to supplement the gap because he didn't do the research to go and figure out how do I add that 30% gap that I'm going to have. Now, of course, if you live below your means and you pay everything off before you retire and do all those types of things and don't travel and don't do anything and live off of your Social Security with a time of inflation, because inflation is 3% growth every year, that's a challenge, right? Like that's impossible virtually. And unless you're going to become a burden on your children, your grandchildren, you don't have a plan in place. You're going to need to supplement because inflation is happening. Most people want to travel during their retirement years and do other fun hobbies and things of that nature. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the taxation. It was 94, as high as 91 and 94% in the 40s and the 50s. It's now in 40%. Do you feel like it's going to double, like Congress said, by 2033? Absolutely. So how are you going to get in front of that? Pay the taxes now or pay the taxes later? Pay the taxes on the seed or pay the taxes on the harvest? So have you considered, is a question I would ask you, have you considered tax treatment and how your taxation is going to be in retirement? What are you doing today to try to get yourself in a better position for tomorrow in retirement? A lot of people are moving into Roths. That is not a one size fit all, right? Roths, it depends on when you move into a Roth, will determine if it's even beneficial for you from a taxation perspective. That makes sense. Okay. The younger you are, the more sense it makes. The older you are, the less sense it makes to move into a Roth. You have to do the equation. There's a lot of different software out here that help us to determine when is the right time to move into a Roth type of account. But the biggest thing that you need to understand about a Roth is that a Roth don't give you any benefits. A Roth, you can still lose money in just like any other type of qualified plan, even though it's tax-free. And I think we overlooked that. We overlooked the long-term care that's needed.
Shatika, I wanna slow down just a little
Sure,
bit
sure.
to make sure we're getting some comprehension. So one of the questions we have is, what is a Roth? And I want to also clarify as well. So
Sure.
the presentation that you're presenting, you want to make sure that everyone understands that while they may have plans that are associated with their work, like their 401ks, their pensions, that they also need to be thinking of tax deferred ways that they could also accommodate for their retirement, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because you're
Okay.
still going to get taxed in those types of products. Every product is taxed except for that one vehicle that we talked about.
Okay. So can you explain what a Roth is? Because we
Right.
did
So,
have that question come
yeah,
in.
so you have Roth IRAs, you have Roth 401ks, and all that's saying is that you change your tax code from being taxed in the future or being tax deferred to being taxed now so that you don't have to pay taxes when you're retired. So you're basically absorbing the taxation today so that you don't have to pay taxes in the future. Most people want their money to grow tax-free, and that's one of the ways they move into a tax-free retirement is by paying the taxes today.
So a Roth is just an instrument that you could put your money into at this time.
Right. So if you have a traditional IRA or traditional 401k, for example, you can take those funds that's inside those two types of accounts, and you can tell your tax professional or your financial advisor to help you to structure it into what's called a Roth IRA or a Roth, 401k, so that you don't have to worry about paying taxes in retirement. Because you realize that taxes are going to be higher, and you rather pay the taxes today on the seed instead of paying taxes in the future on the harvest. You rather pay taxes on $20,000 today, bite the bullet while you're younger, than pay taxes on a $200,000 bill when you're a senior and you cannot afford to pay all those taxes. Which you'll be in a different tax bracket, so that can help you depending on your situation.
Thank
All
you.
right, good question. All right, so basically, we want to make sure that we position ourselves for tax-free retirement. That's, like I said, one of the big killers of, or I should say, termites of retirement, is the taxation, the market volatility, the fees that can be eaten up inside of some of these types of accounts. And so that was the other benefit for those policy types. They're 50% less than the traditional mutual fund types of accounts, or those other stocks types of accounts. Those accounts are generally 50% higher in fees as well. We did this already earlier, just doing it again. But if you had $100,000 invested in 1997, it's just kind of showing you how you would have lost the money a couple times on your way to retirement. And some people, that causes them to have to stay in retirement longer, you know what I mean, or work a couple jobs so they can build their retirement account up again. That's very unnecessary when you can just put it inside of an index type of account. We're going to talk about index universal life policies. That's an IUL, or an index annuity. So a lot of people are moving from 401ks to index annuities because they don't have to worry about losing money in the market. Their accounts are being protected from market volatility, and in an IUL, your money's actually growing tax-free. That's really what that's talking about. But we'll talk more about
So
that.
before you go on, we do have a couple questions.
Okay.
The first question is, are there income limits on non-employer Roth IRAs?
Income limits. There are income limits. They
On
govern.
non-employer. Mhm.
Right, they do govern those income limits. The government, they govern everything when it comes to qualified types of accounts, and a Roth IRA is a qualified account.
Even if it's a non-employer Roth IRA,
Yes, because it's a Roth,
like the
it's
SEP.
a tax
Yeah.
code.
Okay.
It's a tax
Okay.
code. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Everything can be
So,
governed by is governed by the government when it comes to qualified accounts.
okay.
So you
And
have,
so
go ahead.
the next question, if you are in retirement, why do you still pay Social Security? I think you kind
Inside
of just
retirement,
answered
somebody's
that.
paying Social Security.
Yes.
First time I've ever heard that.
Okay.
I've
So
never heard
that
that
person
before.
may need to go back and check.
Yeah, so let me do some research, but I've never heard of that. They pay Social Security?
Mhm. That was the question. If you are in retirement, why do you still pay Social Security?
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're paying.
Next question. If I open a mutual fund, how much should I expect to pay in fees? That's kind of tough, right? That's a
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
specific
Yeah, it's
question.
absolutely. Because every entity brokerage is different. It's different type. It's just too much. It's a lot of different types, so that I couldn't be able to tell you which mutual fund it is and how much they're going to charge you, and it's gonna go. It can go up, it can go down in terms of the fee. A lot of things could happen. So definitely wouldn't be able. It's just way too many variables to be able to tell you what that amount of fee is. I can tell you, generally speaking, it's going to be anywhere between 35 to 50% higher than a policy type, but I can't tell you the exact number because we don't know what fund you're talking about.
All right, that's all the questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So medical challenges. So a lot of people, we feel like we're healthy and we're going to be healthy all our lives, and that's great for most people that feel that way. But there's 70% to 80% of people that will need long-term care in retirement, and so we can't turn a blind eye to that. We got to think about how do we get around that if that is to happen. will we be depleting our retirement account if that is to happen? And so, like I said before, the hit list, healthcare being the H and hit, you got to figure out how can you get that paid for without depleting your 401k or whatever type of account you decide you're going to have. And that is the reason why people are leveraging the IUL, because they want that death benefit to pay for that while they still have a cash value that's been accumulated, to be able to be used by them, because they're leveraging it for liquidity and long-term care versus having to deplete a qualified account because they incur cancer, heart attack, stroke, things of that nature. So your options is something you want to take a look at when it comes to medical care. Let me see.
And before you go on, just want to go back to clarify maybe what we thought that
Sure,
question was in
sure.
as far as paying Social Security while in retirement. Potentially, they may still be working. Those were the, maybe
Oh,
suggested reasons. If they're
okay.
still working in retirement, because of course
Gotcha.
people can retire at different phases.
Sure,
So that's just kind of assumption. And
sure.
then a person pays taxes even though they collect Social Security. So perhaps that was the question. So maybe
Yes.
it's not necessarily Social Security.
No,
Okay, so that's the question.
yeah,
That was the question.
they're
Yes,
not totally, yeah, they're
yeah.
not
Okay, so
totally retired.
hold, pause. Yeah, they're not completely retired. That explains. It says yes, I'm retired, but I work part-time and I'm paying
Gotcha.
Social
That makes
Security.
sense.
That makes sense. Okay, that yes, because it's coming out of your part-time income. Got it.
Yeah, so you're going to still pay taxes and you're still going to pay Social Security. You're going to pay whatever the employer is paying. You're going to supplement because that's part of the law that says that while you're paying, I get it, you're in retirement, you figure you shouldn't have to pay because you're already retired. But unfortunately, um, it's the law that as you work, you still have to pay those types of benefits because that's what that group term, a group Social Security benefit is for that particular employer. And so every employee that's on, they have to be treated exact same. They can't be treated differently because they're retired. So yeah, you definitely will continue to pay that. As long as we live, we'll still be paying taxes. If we're on a W-2 or a 1099, you were definitely going to be paying taxes for sure.
Okay. And then a new question came in. I'm 58 and I'm retiring in a month. Can I transfer? And please, if this is too specific and you may need to have an offline
Yeah,
conversation,
it's an
that is
offline
an
because I don't know their financial
yeah,
situation. We tell people that all the
yeah,
time.
and yes, I'll read the whole question and then you can decide if it's an offline. I'm 58, I'm retiring in a month. Can I transfer 500,000 into a annuity until I'm 65? Any benefit in doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. That's a good question. And that'll benefit everybody. You can transfer it because there's a couple things that can happen for you. You can get a bonus. A lot of carriers are giving significant bonuses, right? Anywhere from 10 to 32% benefit bonus, meaning that if you're using it for income, you can get a 32% increase on whatever you roll over just for rolling it over. They want to reward you for giving them the money. And then two, you're protecting your money from market volatility. Your money is no longer going to lose any money in the market because it's with a carrier. Is an index. I'm talking about an index type of annuity. Okay, let's be clear. You got the variable annuities, you got the index, and then you got the fixed. Okay, a fixed or an index, you don't lose any money in. You can lose money in a variable, and we never advocate for anyone to get a variable annuity. So let's be clear about that. Yeah, very good question.
And so it sounds like there are some benefits before it, but we want to reiterate, we are not giving any
Right.
financial advice because it's a broad question. It would require to take a look at your entire financial portfolio. So the answer is there are some benefits. However, we cannot specifically recommend what you do.
Very
Um,
good.
Two more questions. Is this a life insurance policy? I am assuming the question is it the instrument you're talking about, the ULA? Am I using the correct term?
IUL, Index Universal Life.
IUL, the IUL, is that a life insurance policy?
And Index Universal Life is a policy. It is a policy. An annuity is a contract. And so the difference between the two is that you don't have to have the health requirement for the annuity. You have to have the financial means to do the annuity. You have to show that you have reserves. They're both index type products that prevent you from losing your money in retirement. But the index universal life is going to require you to have the health and the financial component.
Final question, and then we're going to let her continue on. This relates back to the person who's working part-time. Will the Social Security money go back on their check if they stop working? So the question is, their Social Security is being collected now. Will, if they stop working, that money that is collected, will they recoup that now that they are in retirement?
Yeah, so retirement is going to be calculated up until they're age 70. So it starts at 62 and it keeps adding up until age 70 and it stops at age 70.
Okay, so I think they're asking, since they're collecting Social Security now, that money that's coming out part-time, will
Oh,
they
yeah, it's
get
not going
that
to add
money?
to what they are receiving in Social Security at all. Once you turn on
Okay,
Social Security, it's called lifetime income. You get that money for the rest of your life at the exact same amount that you turned it on. All right, so that's why a lot of
gotcha.
people should delay their, well, a lot of people decide to delay their Social Security till they're as old as 70 because they realize that they can get a lot more if they wait. But if you need your money at 62 and you turn it on, there, just because you're working doesn't mean that you're going to get additional benefits because you've already turned on your Social Security.
Gotcha. That was
All
all the
right.
questions. You can proceed.
Very good. Good questions. All right. So infinite income. This is the part people like, Social Security. Income that you will not outlive. You got to put your money to work for you. How do you do that? The average person, if you are a female or male, depending on how, which one you are, it determines on how much longer you're going to live. Of course, we know females are outliving males. And so the probability of you living to be 95 years old is a 14%, probability. So do you have enough money to take you to that age? And so with healthcare challenges and those types of things, people are definitely fearing running out of money because of their health, but also, making sure that they can keep pace with inflation at the same time. And so the longer you stay in retirement and living, the larger the gap becomes. All right. So from, we're looking at, let's say you need, $4,000 today. You already calculated everything. You say, well, today I need $4,000. You might want to keep adding like 3% to that every year that you're going to live, because that's basically what you're going to need, if not more, because of inflation. We don't know what inflation is going to do in the future, but we just look at the trends. And so the goal is just to try to make sure that you understand the gap and where that's going. So when you start calculating your income in the future, what you're going to need, understanding how much money you're going to have today based on ssa.gov, and then where you're going to be with your pension plan, where you're going to be with that 401k that you have, that annuity. And the person that talked about the annuity, there has been some, because there's no loss inside the annuity, it traditionally has outpaced, the qualified plans that aren't, indexed, because you don't have to worry about it going down. It just shows you, and you can set it up to be like S&P 500. I did some more analysis on the S&P 500 for the last 40 years. There was only 7 years where there was a gap, right? I mean, I should say a negative downward trend in the market. And in those 7 years, that person would have still been able to I should say, they wouldn't have seen any loss, I should say. But they would have been continuing to grow, beyond those 7 years. I feel like with the gap analysis report that you're seeing here, anyone that has, say, any amount of money anywhere, you want to know that if you need to have a guarantee, then an index type of account is the place to say, well, I know I won't have a loss at least inside of my account. Because right now I do have holes, so to speak, inside any other traditional retirement types of accounts with employer plans. Okay, employer plan. Now, if you have a pension, you can add that. But again, adding all those things up, where do you need to be at 70% of where you are today, and how does that look for you in the future? That's pretty much how you're going to do the math. SSA.gov, how much Social Security plus having your pension plus whatever you have in qualified accounts equals hopefully over 70% of what you're making today. to account for inflation. All right. So it really is about the time that helps you make the money, right? The longer you wait, the more money you're going to have to bring to Social Security. This is a very good case study that talks about, basically Julie, who has $350 a month, all right, at the age of 25 versus Karen, who waited till she was 40 for the same $350 a month. She will have to double that $350 and pay $700 a month just to catch up with Julie when she's at the same age, but she's still going to be behind. She still will only have $315 versus $326,000. And so it really does help when you can just, like, you hear people talk about dollar cost averaging. Doesn't matter. Just put money somewhere, no matter where you put it, so it can start growing and continuing to grow and grow and grow. Even if you do dollar cost averaging with your qualified account, that's with an employer, long as you put something away. If you want to say, well, I'd rather just do 401k, that's fine. Just do something, because again, it's the time that's going to help you to see growth in your money, and you don't have to play catch up later on. It's harder when you don't have anything, when you haven't started. You know what I mean? So
Before you go further, you've used the term gap quite often, and there's a question of what do you mean when you say the gap?
So in the beginning of the presentation, I showed like the 3 circles with a gap. So the first one is basically going to be, where you are with your income, right? So, and I can try to go back to that because I know
No, you
for
don't
some
have to
people.
go back. If you can just kind of give a brief
Yeah, so the gap
explanation.
is, and it was just that last slide as well. So basically the gap is, where do you need to be in the future? 70% of what you make today. For easy math, if you make $100,000, $70,000 is what you're going to need in the future for your retirement. If Social Security is only going to give you $40,000, where are you going to find the other $30,000 so that you can be able to have the $70,000 that you're going to need to live in the future? And so designing a supplemental retirement account, such as what we're speaking about this evening, that's going to help you to close that gap, so you don't have to worry about it. But even more so, preventing you from having to go further in the hole if you should experience any type of healthcare challenge, chronic, critical, or terminal illness, that can also build a hole in 80%, 70 to 80% of people's retirement accounts that they don't plan for. Because Medicare
So,
does not
so
cover long-term
essentially,
care.
yeah. So essentially, if you're just using some of those regulated products that you talked about, there is a limit as to what they will be able to provide you, whether it be your 401k, your pension plans. You need to take outside of what your employer provides and be concerned about the gap in between, so that you can live comfortably. That a good layman's way of putting it?
Yeah. Yep. So
Yeah.
basically, 40% is what you can expect out of Social Security. Plus the 30% that you're going to need is the gap that I'm talking about. That 30% is the gap. You're going to need another 30% to get you to 70% on average. I don't know your financial situation. This is not financial advice. But on average, you need 70% of what you're making today if you do not upgrade your lifestyle. Okay.
And so the question, piggyback on that, is that 70% true if you're debt free?
That 70% is, it can be, depending on if you living your best life and you're traveling and hanging out with your friends, doing a lot of new hobbies and those types of things. I mean, I don't know what your spending habits are. I don't know your relationship with money. I don't know anything, but if you're debt free, it's going to help. But can you live off 40% of your money that you're making today in retirement? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Because that's pretty much what most people get from Social Security, is about 40%. If you want to go to ssa.gov and see what you're making, hopefully you get that amount. We don't know what your dollars are going to be, because we don't know how much you put in, how much you paid into the system. If you were always a business owner, you probably didn't pay much into it. You might not have much or of anything. So understand what do you have available, and then understand you need to have 70% of what you're generating in income.
For the sake of time, everyone continue to put your questions in, but I'm going to allow her to finish, so that we won't go over the top.
These are some great questions, though. Thank y'all so much for asking. We want to make sure we have clarity along the way. All right, so I'm going to kind of wrap this up. We're getting real close to the end here. Supplemental savings, we kind of talked about this throughout all of the different presentations slides that we've had so far. Traditional on the left-hand side is what most people have. This is basically a type of life insurance plan on the left that most people have. Remember, I told you in the very beginning that there are 6 steps to financial freedom. We talked about the six steps. We told you that there was cash flow. That was one of them. Emergency plans, debt payoff. Then we talked about protections and things of that nature. Well, your traditional, cash value producing policy type is going to give you all those steps. Okay. Term policy will not give you that. So a lot of people, especially in our community, African American community, I'm a home girl. I'm born and raised right here in Liberty Park, right? So I'm one of you, right? So I get it. We was taught term by term and investor-esque growing up. But if you have a permanent cash value policy, all these benefits that you see to the right, you'll be able to have all of those. Okay. You get the death benefit that you can use. You don't have to die to use that. If you have heart attack, cancer, stroke, we literally wrote a $80,000 check for a young lady who had cancer from her death benefit. She didn't have that. She had a 401k, a 403b, 457. She couldn't have done that, right? Because all you have is all you have. There is no leverage. So that leverage and liquidity are the 2 important reasons why people get IULs. Leverage and liquidity. Cash value, she gets to take out as many tax-free loans as she wanted, right? Just like Brother B that we saw earlier, he had $706,000 tax-free loans he could take, retirement lifetime income that, okay, for the rest of your life. A term policy can do that. A term policy is going to go higher every time it renews, and you're going to pay that or you're not going to have a policy, right? And so in retirement, people love the index universal life because let's talk about that fixed income that you're on. Your roof goes bad. You got a hole in your roof. You got to repair the roof. Where are you going to get the money from? You're going to go to your index universal life policy. You're going to take out a loan. You're going to pay that $12,000 for that roof or $20,000, whatever it is. And your money is still going to be growing inside of your index universal life policy as if it never left. All right. It's still growing while you put the money on your roof. Now you're going to have a 5% loan rate, depending on what carrier, 4 to 6%. But that's going to be less than the average loan credit card you're going to use to pay to borrow from to be able to repair your roof, and you're in your senior years. Okay. If you don't pay the money back, it just comes off your death benefit. So that's why people don't care about a death benefit when it comes to IUL. A lot of people, they really don't care. It can be the lowest death benefit or whatever, because they just want to be able to use it as an instrument to be able to leverage the cash value to be able to use when they need it on emergencies. Rather, they have a 12-month emergency, entire year of finances that they need because they lost their job, or they just have a simple roof issue, or they want to buy a new car, whatever. It's their money. They don't have to have another credit hit. They don't have to worry about their debt to income going higher. They don't have to worry about lawsuits of any kind. Okay, because the court system cannot see their cash value inside of their IUL. So those are some of the things that when you're in you don't have money to be given for any type of lawsuit, rather be an IRS coming for you or whomever coming for you. That's why we have to do anti-money laundering laws, because people hide their money in their permanent cash value policy. So as a person that's retired, you can leverage that to do whatever you need to do, because you've been saving up along the way for your retirement. Now you got that money that you can use twice. It's growing inside of your policy. It's leveraging for your death benefit, for your children, however you set it up, and you're using it while you're living. Now you can use whatever you use while you're living. Of course, that's going to come off the death benefit. So if you get $1 million IUL and you use $12,000 for your roof, then it's just minus $12,000 if you don't pay the loan back. So sometimes people worry about paying loans back. If you don't pay it back, it comes off the death benefit. So that's how that works. You get income for the rest of your life, just like you do with Social Security. So now you can supplement with that 30% gap that we talked about earlier. You can supplement with an index universal life to be able to have, and you won't be able to do that with a term policy because there is no cash value inside of a term policy. And then of course you can have a minimum floor of 1 to 3%, but the average person don't care about that. They're fine with the zero. They're fine with not having to lose any money inside of their policy. They're good with that. They don't have to have a minimum return of 1 to 3%. So this is, again, just for illustration purposes, you know, the IUL versus traditional to the left, you know, permanent cash value policies that most people have and how it differs. So we can keep moving on. I just told you a couple reasons how you can use it in retirement. And this is the final one here, the final big slide that we want to really cover, because a lot of you have, like we talked about, those traditional qualified accounts, and people are rolling those things over because they're tired of losing money. They're tired of not having enough benefits. And so if you have all those types of plans to the left, 401k, all those types, well, you know, it doesn't matter, IRA, all those qualified accounts can lose money inside of the market if risk is your concern, because you're closer to retirement. Usually the closer you are to retirement, the less risk you want to have. You want to decrease your risk. Okay. When you're young, you might have a portfolio of 75% investments versus, you know, 25 risk-free, right? And then when you're like 45 and higher, you might want to start moving towards, and there's no magic number. It's based on the individual. It's very subjective. You need to know what your risk tolerance is. And I often say you only want to invest money that you can afford to lose. But the closer you come towards retirement, the less your risk should be, so that you can keep more money into retirement. So everything to the left is your traditional retirement accounts that we hear often. SEP IRA is not on here, but that's one as well. That's your business owner retirement. But then you have the index annuity that a lot of people are taking what's on the left-hand side, and they're getting that bonus of anywhere between 4 and, actually this is old slide, but 32% is the highest I've seen lately. Okay. As a broker, 32% is the highest. So if you have $100,000, that's 32% added on to that, depending on the carrier. And this is for benefit purposes, right? So that means your lifetime income just increased by 32%, right? For cash value purposes, a lot of them are just like 10%, you know, around hovering somewhere around 10%. This is, you can be able to access more cash. Lifetime income benefit rider is simply a Social Security type of account. So basically, Social Security is an annuity. People don't know that. It is an annuity, okay? You just didn't design it. It was designed by the government. Now you have the opportunity to supplement what the government did for you with your own index annuity that you purchase. And some people leverage things like HELOCs, all types of things to get ahead. I don't encourage anyone to do that. I feel like that should be your last resort. But you got to do what you have to do. There's a lot of strategies out there, but the numbers have to make sense. I would never tell anybody to do that. But an index annuity is going to give you an income for the rest of your life if you strap for cash. I just did one for another lady. Like, people are needing extra money because of inflation. But the wonderful thing about index annuities, is that it will compete with inflation. All right, you have some that adjust with inflation, and you have some that they might be fixed. So you have the fixed index annuity, then you have just the index annuity that's going to have what's called a renewal rate, that's going to adjust based on the market volatility. So when the market goes up, the index annuities go up. So, you know, when the rates start to come down, it's not the best time to buy an index annuity, because your participation rates, and I know that's another whole word, but participation rate, meaning based on what the market does, will determine how your account is going to be credited. So if the market does, say, 10% and your participation rate is 390%, your account will get credited 39% instead of 10%. And so index annuities, I've seen them as high as 465% in participation rate, right? But then they're coming down because of the market correction and the rates coming back down. So as the rates come down, so do those participation rates. So it's just important to understand what's going on in the market with that, and then that'll tell you when to get into an annuity and when not. It's always a good time whenever you have inflation going on, because it's going to be one of the tools or instruments that helps you to combat inflation, basically. So lifetime income benefit rider, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished, because we have some really good questions coming through. So I'll let you finish.
I love questions.
Okay. So first question, is 4% a good amount to save if you have a lock amount at the bank for 24 months? I'm not sure I understand that one.
I would ask them if it's a good amount for them. and their lifestyle and how much money they're going to need, then their personal situation, is it going to cover their expenses?
Gotcha.
There's
Just
definitely
that.
more competitive ways. You know, you can ask the question again, but I feel like there's going to be other ways, of course, to skin a cat. But if that works for that person, 4%, 4%. Say that one more time. Ask that question one more time, please.
We go back to it. Is 4% a good amount to save if you have a locked amount at the bank for 24 months? So it sounds like they're locked in for
Oh,
24 months at 4%.
oh, yeah. Mm. There's a
And I'm
lot more
hearing you
competitive vehicles out here than 4%.
that they could, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Next question is an IUL is based on being able to afford and maintain the premium payments, correct? If you can no longer afford to pay, what happens?
So good question. The way the IUL is built, and it's one of the reasons people love it, is because it's very flexible. So if you have a job loss or something of that nature, as long as you have cash value inside your IUL, it can pay your premiums for you. Unlike a whole life, you don't have a lot of maneuver in there. So yeah, the IUL, if you can't pay it, you still can leverage with your cash value. But if you've been the one that's been dipping your hand in the cookie jar the whole time and you don't have any cash value, you're about to lapse your policy. You have to have cash value inside of an IUL in order for it to be one that's not going to lapse. And so I tell people how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you're a person that have a bank check that's bouncing all over the place, then you do not need an IUL, and we don't want you to have one. And so one of the things we do as comprehensive analysis is what do you have assets, what do you have liabilities, and your net worth. That's going to let us know whether you can afford one or not. To be honest, just kind of like what the realtors do. Do you have, what's your debt or income ratio? What does that look like? Are you going to be able to afford a house? We're going to look the same thing. When we look at your needs analysis form that you fill out, are you going to be a good candidate for an IUL? We don't want to charge back on our name, right? So we want to make sure that we do good business with you, and we will never, a good financial advisor would never do that to you and put you inside something like that.
Next question. Does long-term care have a payout limit, like a time limit?
No, there's no time limit.
This question, if I'm already retired, how do I go about getting an IUL? So this person is already retired and may want to get an IUL.
It's an instrument used primarily for retirement, but you don't have to be retired to get an IUL. And if you're using it for the purpose of banking and those types of things, it would have to make sense for your age, right? And so an index universal life policy doesn't necessarily work great for certain ages just because of the cost of insurance. The index universal life is more of a long-term play, and a whole life policy is more of a short-term play. You just want to get in and get out. I wouldn't recommend, if you're already in retirement, I'm assuming you're over 62. I don't know your age, that we would have to look at it to see if it makes sense. Because if you're just trying to get some tax-free growth, and you want to leverage your death benefit, we can see if it makes sense. We have to look at the carriers and look at the rates and the participation rates and different carriers and all those types of things, and which your actual age is, and how long are you trying to keep this for? Are you keeping it for the rest of your life? How much money do you have to put inside of there to help it make sense? Those types of things.
Awesome. Next question. Would your premium be more or higher with the IUL? And would there be a possibility of losing your money with an IUL?
Yeah, so I don't know your age, but I'll tell you that compared to a whole life policy, IUL is a good blend between the two, okay, between whole life and term. So all IUL is like a good whole life with term inside of it to make you be able to afford more death benefit than you would with a whole life. Whole life is the most expensive. IUL is the next expensive, and then of course term is least expensive. What guarantees you to not lapse your policy and lose your money is to have cash value inside of your policy. All right. You want to ideally have about 15% inside of your of whatever your premium is inside of your actual cash value. You don't want to deplete your cash value, because if you do that, start taking all that money out for loans, Now you put yourself in a bad position. Let's say there are bad years. You won't make any money inside the policy, but you won't lose any money, but you still got the fees coming out, even though you didn't make any money. You see what I'm saying? And so the goal is just to make sure that you have some cushion inside there to cover those fees in your inside your later years of life as you're getting older. Now, um, you can go from what's called a B increasing policy to a level and vice versa. That can help you with some things. So, for example, your death benefit can be growing from a young age to an older age, and then it can stop growing. You can structure the policy to stop growing at a certain time, and then it can be locked in, right, at a certain death benefit at that point, you know, until you pass away, what's called a level. And so when we do retirement accounts, we structure policies to be what's called B increasing, where the death benefit goes up, because we want you to start at the lowest death benefit possible so you can get the most cash value going inside of the policy as possible. That's how we structure retirement accounts, to be more clear. And so you won't lose any money if you have it structured properly and you're building up a nice cash value inside of it. If you don't have it structured properly, you may not see a whole lot of cash value, right? Because they don't know how to properly structure that policy to where you can have cash value in the beginning years of the policy instead of having to wait 10, 11 years into the policy. If you don't structure it the right way, then, and you need money, you didn't have enough cash value because it wasn't structured properly by the right person, then that's a problem. So if the person, if they poorly structure your policy, you can lose money. I mean, when I say lose money, you're going inside it, but you don't have any cash value going in it because it's not growing properly because it wasn't structured from a lower death benefit. And I'll just be honest and be transparent. The bigger your death benefit, the more they're going to make, right? So some advisors might structure the policy to where you have a big death benefit, but you really need to start off with a very little death benefit, right? And then just let your death benefit grow unless your DIME, DIME, which stands for debt, income, mortgage, and expense, requires you to have a big death benefit, right? Like you're over leveraged already and you need $1 million policy because you're $1 million in debt already. Then you need to have a death benefit of $1 million. But if you're trying to structure for a retirement account, we're going to start around 100,000 and just try to stick around that, right? So that you can have the most cash value growing inside of your policy to be able to give you the most retirement income in the future. I didn't show you, and I haven't gotten it. I know we're out of time, but I can show you where we structure definite income, like
And
$65,000
we
a
do
year,
have
those
other
types.
questions I want to keep in mind for time perspective too.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to answer this one for you. It says, question from the YouTube page, can we get a copy of the slides? I would say no, because just her giving the slides without explanation is not going to give context, but the videos will be on our YouTube page as well as our Facebook page. The two questions. What is the minimum amount and maximum amount you can start with a IUL? And then are you able to put a beneficiary on the IUL in case of death?
Yes, absolutely. There is no minimum. I would say if you, yeah, the minimum I've seen is $25,000 death benefit. Of course, no maximum, and absolutely you can put a beneficiary. Next question.
Okay. And that actually is all of our questions except this one I think you appreciate, which says, this presentation was very helpful, lots of good information. Please have Shatika again.
Oh, thank you so much. And I didn't even get to it all.
So we definitely will have to have you back, but I think it was very very helpful information. I don't know if everyone got the takeaway that I got, was that you can't depend on some of these plans independently. You need to make sure that you're also thinking of ways to protect yourself in the long term. So we want to thank Ms. Shatika for this evening. Thank you all for participating with all of the great questions that came through. And we will see how we can get you back. Shatika, if someone has a more personal question, how can they get in contact? Do you have a slide with that information?
I do. I'll put it back up. I was trying to skip through all the other ones. And I'll share 1 second. Share it again.
And we can also email it out if we, because the shared thing was giving us some challenges. And what I do love, you guys, about the work that Shatika does, she is a homegirl from our community, grew up in North Charleston. Life just blessed her to be able to go other places, but she is now back here in the Low Country, committed to helping people build wealth and prepare for retirement. So Shatika, we thank you so much for your time this evening. Looks like something else just came through. I want to make sure. How long does it take for the instrument to start building cash value? That was the
You
final
can see
question.
cash value the first year, depending on how it's built.
Okay.
You
So
want to work with somebody that knows how to properly build an IUL. A lot of people know how to do whole life, but they don't know how to do IULs.
awesome. Awesome. So again, thank you, Shatika. Thank you guys for, wait a minute. I don't think they're gonna let you go, Shatika. No, that was the final question. I did answer the final question.
I wanted to say
Dave,
thank you for having me,
thank
Shakima,
you.
and Miss Cleo and the royal family. Thank you. I want to give honor to what honor is due, to your pastor and everyone that's here at the Royal Missionary Baptist Church. I love what you guys are doing for the community as well. I see all around about, and I see the fruit of the members there, like Shakima and some other ones. Congratulations, Shakima, on your latest award, because you have quite a bit.
To God be
But
the
thank you
glory.
all so much for having me. I did want to be able to do a complimentary consult for someone that would like to do that. I was trying to see who was in the chat, but we didn't do it that way, so I couldn't give it to the first person to join or the first person in the chat. So I don't know how to give away a couple of them. I guess you guys can figure that out. But I did want to do that, and then go from there.
So I will do this on the count of three. The first person that says me, we will make sure they get the complimentary. 1, 2, 3. If you put me, and someone already got it, okay? So just like that. Oh, I'm going to disqualify this member because he is a member of the committee, and I'm going
Let's
to
do
give it
three.
to.
Let's do the first three, Shakima.
Oh, well, perfect, because it was just 3. So that's perfect.
Okay.
So congratulations, Guts Chandler, Angela Wyatt, and Sherald Moses. I'm going to take a screenshot of this or we will forget. And we will make sure. I'm going to have to do some things. I'm going to make sure those 3 get theirs. How cool is that?
And
So
we
we
got a
have our.
bonus. We got a bonus accommodations only for the first person.
So the first person was Gus. So I'm going to send you the screenshots
Okay.
of the.
Well,
the
if they can
3.
reach out to me, info at Shatika Hustle and say I was the winner, and then I can go from there.
Yeah, and I'll get the names. Because they registered, we can get that to you.
Sure. Awesome.
All right.
This has been awesome.
Guys,
Thank you.
for an amazing evening. Great information. Um, Miss Norva said me. So Miss Norva, you're gonna have to reach out to Shatika. But thank you guys. Continue to watch church announcements, our website. If you don't attend Royal, because this is open to everyone outside of Royal, but every fourth Wednesday of the month, we do our Wellness on Wednesday series, covering everything like we did tonight as it relates to finances, health, education, just a gambit of things. And we do have to give honor to our pastor who saw the need to have this additional education for his congregations, just outside of spiritual growth that we know we get an amazing amount of during our normal Sunday services. So thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you next month at our next Wellness on Wednesday series. Have a good night.